So, first things first, I hope that you can notice that my lighting is a bit better and hopefully my sound quality should be a bit better as well. I haven't fully tested my new microphone yet, so you'll have to bear with me in terms of settings and things, but hopefully there should be a difference already. Now the reason I have 2 new box lights and 1 new Rode mic is because earlier this week it was my birthday and my lovely family and boyfriend were kind enough to buy me a Rode mic and 2 box lights, which I was so overwhelmed and excited by, so absolutely loving that, and I'm really hoping you'll be able to tell the difference. My family also, very lovely, gave me some vouchers for some books, and so I may have gone a little overboard on the book hauling. Lee and I went to the big Waterstones in Piccadilly in London, which I really enjoyed. It's really amazing in there. It's 6 floors of books, and the science fiction, fantasy, manga section was pretty big as well, so that made me very happy. We also popped into Forbidden Planet as well, and I did some damage, let's be honest. I did take some footage whilst I was in Forbidden Planet and Waterstones, so I will show you some of that right now. I'm going to start off with a couple of bookish items that I received for my birthday first of all. Okay, so the first bookish item that I got was this reading planner, journal, tracker thing. That was eloquent, wasn't it? From my friend Jess. So this has pages to write the name of the book, the author, when you started and finished it, what your review is, summary and 3 keywords, some notes and quotes and things. And then there's also challenges throughout the book. So this is going to actually be really helpful for me, probably for video planning as much as anything else. So I'm really excited to start making my way through this. I've already read 17-18 books this year, so I already have quite a lot of filling in to do in this one. And she also got me this really cute tote, which is so true. It says, "If I can't take my books, I'm not going." And I mean, yeah, I agree. Now I'm going to get into the books, and I'm not necessarily going to do this in any particular order because I don't think there is an order to speak of, but I am going to start with graphic novels and manga. So the first graphic novel that I picked up, well actually this is the only graphic novel I picked up, the rest are all manga. It is called In Real Life by Cory Doctorow and Jen Wang, and I found this one in Forbidden Planet in the independent authors section, which really intrigued me. And then I picked this one up purely because I liked the look of the art style on the outside, and then the art style in here, just picking some random pages, is also really pretty. And it's quite nice that it's full colour and it's very colourful, and it's the kind of art style that I quite like. So I picked it up for that reason, and then I read the synopsis, and it's actually a queer story, which was just a bonus. So that this was ticking a lot of boxes for me: independent author, queer representation, really cute art, and it actually follows a girl who plays in an online forum who finds somebody who is cheating that online forum and tries to stop them, and then ends up building a relationship with them. And it seems like she starts questioning what her view of right and wrong actually is. So it gives me sort of Ready Player One vibes, but more so Summer Wars, which is an anime film which I can't remember which studio it's from now off the top of my head, but if I can find out I'll write it somewhere. And it's a film that I really enjoyed that has a very similar premise to this one. So I picked this one up and I'm really interested to read it. Then I picked up Monster, which is a manga by Naoki Arasawa, and I picked this one up on the recommendation of my friend Nisha from the channel On the Margins Of, and it is a post-World War II based manga, and I believe that our protagonist is a doctor who questions his profession and life choices after an abomination is born. I don't know what that abomination is. And then there's also murder by a serial killer that needs to be investigated, and it's called Monster. I'm guessing that the monster is the abomination. I'm not really sure. To be honest, my friend recommended it to me and I didn't really ask questions. I just put it on my TBR and I found it, so I picked it up. Not much more to it than that, really. Then I picked up Volume 1 of Flying Witch by Chihiro Ishizuka. And again, the drawing style is very cute. This one I picked up on a recommendation from Lee. It's one that he's heard lots of good things about. I actually hadn't heard it, but it sounded like a cute story. It follows a witch and her familiar who is a black cat with whom she can communicate. And I have actually already read this one. It's very episodic, very short installments of storylines. There's one sort of main storyline which is following the protagonist, Makoto, but otherwise each sort of chapter is its own little story in itself, similar to Full Metal Alchemist. They're just a bit shorter than the Full Metal Alchemist chapters. So I thought this was really cute. I really enjoyed it and I'm glad I picked it up, and I might try and find some more editions? Volumes is the word I was looking for. Then I picked up Orange by Ichigo Takano, and this is the complete collection volume 1, which doesn't make a lot of sense to me because there's actually 3 complete collection volumes, so I mean I don't know, but this is volume 1 and there's 2 more, so you can see it's quite a thick manga, and I'd say it's probably fairly classic manga style drawing, which I like, and I've heard a lot about this manga and I've heard that it is very good, so I was interested to pick it up, and I was really glad to be able to find volume 1 at Waterstones because I looked for volume 1 at Forbidden Planet but they didn't have it, so they only had volume 3 I think, so I was glad to find volume 1 in Waterstones because it meant I was able to pick it up. This one follows a protagonist named Naho who on her first day of the 11th grade she receives a letter from her future self which contains lots of predictions, and she has to deal with what to do about the fact that she is receiving all of these predictions from her future self, and they are trying to avoid a certain thing that happens in her future that she doesn't know about. So I quite liked the idea of that, and I did actually read the first few pages of this in Waterstones while I was there, and it hooked me straight away, so I'm really looking forward to picking this one up. Then the last manga that I picked up is called Maidsama, and this is volumes 1 and 2 bound up into one copy. Again, this was kind of on recommendation of my friend Nisha from On the Margins Of. She read this volume 1-2 bind up last week and said that she really enjoyed it, and we follow a protagonist in this one who goes to school during the day, and then in her spare time she is a maid in a maid cafe in Japan. And when one of the popular guys from school comes in to her cafe, she worries what's going to happen to her good girl reputation at school. And it sounds like really cute. I think it's a romance novel or manga, and I'm really looking forward to something fun and fluffy between some of the slightly heavier reads that you are about to see. The first one is The First 15 Lives of Harry August by Claire North, and this follows a protagonist named Harry August who is reliving his life over and over and over again, and at the end of one of his lives he is visited by a young girl who gives him a message that he needs to take back to the past with him when he restarts his life in order to try and stop the end of the world from coming. And that premise just sounds really interesting to me. I haven't ever read anything with the reliving your life over and over again trope, and it's one that I'm interested to give a go. I've heard a lot of good things about this book, and so I am interested to check it out and see if it's something that I might enjoy. Then we have The Lies of Locke, Lamora by Scott Lynch, and this is a book that has been on my TBR for quite a while but hasn't necessarily been on my radar as something that I need to pick up ASAP until I watched some of Murphy Napier's videos in which she reviewed this book and praised it very, very highly, and I seem to have pretty similar reading tastes to her, so I was happy to move this up my list. Now, the synopsis to me sounds a little bit like Oliver Twist, but it also sounds a little bit like Robin Hood to me. So you've got this infamous sort of gang leader who's known for thievery, so that's the Oliver Twist element. He has a gang of sort of juniors that he's trying to apprentice, or at least that's my understanding. And then our protagonist likes to steal from the rich to give to the poor. So that's why I say it's sort of a, to me it sounds like a Robin Hood, Oliver Twist mashup. So I'm interested to see what I think about this one. Again, it's one of those books that has a lot of praise here on BookTube, and it is probably one of those books that's considered pretty classic fantasy right now, so I am interested to find out what I think of it. Next up we have The Name of the Wind by Patrick Rothfuss, and again this is a book that has been on my radar for quite some time, but if I'm being honest, I've been a little bit cautious about picking this one up because of course book 1, The Name of the Wind, is out in the Kingkiller Chronicles, and so is book 2, but Patrick Rothfuss hasn't yet released book 3 and hasn't really given any indication of when book 3 is going to be coming. In fact, when he's asked in interviews about when it's coming, he won't answer the question. So that worried me a little bit. But then having said that, I've read books 1, 2 and 3 of the Stormlight Archive and really enjoyed all of those books, and I'm very keen to get book 4 and 5 and all the way through to 10, which aren't out yet, but I've got so many other books that I want to read that I'm not too worried about the fact that I don't have that book yet, and so I'm hoping that that's going to be transferable to this as well. Also, this book is G from the channel Book Roasts, one of her favourite books, and I asked her recently whether she would still recommend reading it even though there's no update on book 3, and she said yes. So that's good enough for me. I've picked it up and I'm looking forward to finding out what all of the fuss is about. The next book I picked up was Solaris by Stanislaw Lem, which isn't a book that I've heard a lot about here on BookTube, but it was included, I think, in one of Emily Fox's guides to sci-fi. And I do enjoy sci-fi, but I don't read a lot of it, and I would like to read more of it, I think. So I decided to pick it up. It's only short, so I figured it might be a pretty good place to start. It's only 214 pages, so not a massive undertaking. I think it's slightly more classic sci-fi as well, and I've never read any classic sci-fi. So I am interested to see what I'm going to think of that. This one was also originally written in Polish and is a translation, and I don't think that I've ever read a translated book before, but it is something that I am interested in doing, and there is actually another book here that is a translation as well that I have to show you. I'm really sorry if my camera angle has slightly changed now. My battery ran out, but something I should have mentioned earlier is that my sister actually bought me a couple of spare batteries for my camera for my birthday as well, so I've put a new one in and I'm ready to go again. I was about to tell you, this book follows a protagonist who flies out to a space station which is orbiting a mysterious planet, and when he arrives, the crew, he realises, are suffering from hallucinations, and he's trying to get to the bottom of why that is when he starts seeing hallucinations of his dead wife. I don't know much more about this book than that, and I don't really want to, because like I said, it is a very short book. It's only just over 200 pages, and so within that very short space it's very easy to get spoilers if you get too embroiled in what the plot is about. But it sounds very classic sci-fi. Like I mentioned, that's not something I've read a lot of, but it's something that I'm interested in branching out into. And so when I saw this in the shop, it's one I've been looking for a while and haven't been able to track down online, so I figured I would pick it up. Nevernight by J. Christoph was the next book that I picked up, and this is another one that I have heard a lot about here on BookTube, and I'm sort of interested to see what all of the fuss is about. And so I picked it up while I was in Waterstones to read the synopsis, because I hadn't read the synopsis for this one before. It's just an author that I'd heard of and a book series that I'd heard of, and when I saw it on the shelf I thought I'd pick it up and have a look what it was about, and then I discovered that it follows a main character named Mia Caravelle, who joins an assassin school. And I may have mentioned before, but I like books about assassins, and to be honest, I was on a bit of a book buying binge at the time and didn't really need to know any more than that. It follows someone going to an assassin school. Done. Put it in the basket, move on. Then I picked up Caravelle by Stephanie Garber. And there is a very specific reason that I picked this one up, and that is because the Fairy Loot special box that's coming out, I think it's going to be released for sale on the 10th of March, but it's actually coming out in May, is going to be a finale inspired box, finale being the final book in the Caravelle series. And Caravelle is a book that has been on my TBR as well for quite a while, so I thought what better time than to pick up the first book. I will probably at some point pick up the second book as well before I get round to reading finale once that comes out in May. This book is about an invite-only Caravelle which is held once a year, and the attendees then get involved in a game, which sounds like it might have pretty dark consequences. And our two protagonists are sisters who have written to the Caravelle holder and begged him to bring Caravelle to their island, which he does, and they go to the Caravelle, and I'm really interested to find out what is going to happen to them. Time for another sci-fi book now. We have The Long Way to a Small Angry Planet, and this is a book that I've been considering picking up for quite a while, and again I was on a bit of a book buying binge, so I thought, why not? This one follows a protagonist named Rosemary who takes a post on a spaceship because it's going to give her a quiet life. But then the spaceship crew get offered the opportunity of a lifetime to go on a mission into far space, and I don't know more than that. It sounds really interesting. Like I said, sci-fi is something I'm really interested in branching out into, and this one has been on my TBR again for quite a while. Are you sensing a theme here? Basically, I found a load of stuff that was on my TBR and I finally picked it up. I'm not sorry. Next up we have a series of books that I actually didn't buy while I was out book shopping, but which I was given for my birthday by my parents from my Amazon book wishlist, and this is the Red Queen series by Victoria Aveyard. Now, I read book 1, The Red Queen, quite a few years ago now, and I really enjoyed it. But I'm pretty sure at the time that I read it, it was the only book out, and then I kind of went into a reading slump and never returned to the series, but I have always wanted to, and so I'm really glad that I now have this series so that I can pick it back up. So this is a fantasy series which follows a world divided. We have the Reds and the Silvers. The Reds are commoners and the Silvers are the elite. And we follow a protagonist named Mare, who is a Red but is inducted by the Silvers and presented to the world as a long-lost Silver princess. And Mare knows that if she steps a toe out of line, it could go horribly, horribly wrong for her. But she does want to use her infiltrated position to bring about change. Like I said, I did read this book a few years ago, but honestly I can't remember anything about it now other than the fact that I enjoyed it. So I'm looking forward to rereading this one and then being able to read the rest of the series. I do know that this is a young adult fantasy series that has a little bit of a love-hate relationship with people, but seeing as a few years ago I liked book 1, I think it's a fairly safe bet that the series is going to at least be interesting for me. The other translated book that I picked up is The City of Dreaming Books by Walter Moers, and this was originally written in German and has been translated into English, of course, because that's the language I read in. And I haven't heard of this book before. This was a complete spontaneous buy for me in the bookshop, but the cover I found really interesting, and it is full of illustrations, and I don't read a lot of books with illustrations in them, so I was interested to pick up this one because I do like manga, but I do also like books that have a bit more to them, and this seems to have a little bit of both vibes in it. Now, as the title suggests, this book is a little bit meta in that it follows a protagonist who travels to the City of Dreaming Books, and to be honest, I've read the synopsis, but I don't know too much about it, and I'm not sure that I actually want to because it feels like it's going to be quite a whimsical, crazy read, and I feel like I'll probably get more out of it if I go into it not really knowing too much. So I'm afraid I can't tell you what this one is about other than the fact that it involves somebody going to a place that is a place of books, which that was enough for me really. I like reading books about books, so I thought that I'd pick this up. It sounds like it would be quite fun, and I will report back to you on my thoughts once I have read it. The penultimate book that I picked up was Foundry Side by Robert Jackson Bennett, and this is a book that I heard Reagan from the channel Peruse Project talking about over the Christmas period, and it is the first book in a new epic fantasy series, and it's been blurbed as very good by Brandon Sanderson, so already I was interested, and Reagan really enjoyed it, so interested. And then I read the synopsis back in December when I heard of it, and it follows a protagonist who is a thief who also has powerful magic and who tries to pull off a really big and difficult heist, and does. And then she has to protect the stolen item from the evil elements of the world that are trying to get it. And that sounds really interesting to me. It sounds like it's got a really interesting magic system and an epic fantasy world and a large cast of characters and an engaging female protagonist, and it's just ticking a lot of boxes, and so it's been one I've been looking to pick up for a while. I saw it in Waterstones, and so I decided the time is right to pick it up. I am so ready for a new epic fantasy series, and I think that there are plenty of them in this haul, which brings me nicely on to the final book that I picked up, which was The Priory of the Orange Tree by Samantha Shannon. And if you're a fantasy reader or a booktube watcher, you have probably heard of this book. It was released, I believe, on the 28th of February, so it is a very, very new book, and we do have another new epic fantasy series starting right here, and I'm all for it. The copy that I picked up is actually signed by Samantha Shannon herself. She did actually go to that branch of Waterstones, I think on the 28th, to give a talk and to sign some copies of the book. And so I was really pleased to find a signed copy still there that I was able to pick up for my very own. I don't have very many signed books apart from the ones from my Fairy Loot boxes, so I'm really, really excited. And it's a nice, big, thick fantasy series, which I love. We follow a queen who is raising her daughter to take the throne whilst having to prepare for assassins that are being sent after her. We have a magician spy who is taking the place of a lady in waiting, and we have somebody who's training to be a dragon rider. So it sounds like we've got three main plot directions in this book, so it sounds like it's going to be really complicated, it sounds like it's going to have some pretty cool magic, and it sounds like it is going to be a pretty big world with a pretty big cast of characters. And I mean, those are all the hallmarks of epic fantasy, but it's just what I love to read. And if I'm being honest, just the size of this book was enough to sell me on it. I love reading big books. The bigger, the longer, the more intricate, the better. And that is it, if that weren't enough, for the books that I got for my birthday. I hope that you enjoyed this one and that you found it interesting, and I hope that there are some books on this list that you think about adding to your TBR. I will be sure to update you on my thoughts about them all once I've got around to reading them, which may take a while, but I will get there. And that's it for now. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this video and want to see more like this from me, then do think about hitting that subscribe button, and I hope to see you here again soon. Thanks! Bye!